Hey everyone, it's Slayer, and today I'm going to be reviewing A Princess and the Scoundrel by Beth Revis. Now, I know what you're probably thinking, why am I reviewing this 4 years after this book came out? Well, that's because I was arrogant and foolish to think that just because there was a book coming out based off the Star Wars Hotel back then in 2022 when it was still operating, and I thought they were just trying to use a book as a marketing stunt, which, in fairness, it still is. But when I first heard Beth Revis was writing this story, and it was telling a story about Han and Leia and their wedding, I should have not questioned myself or anything else to think that this would be a bad book just because it was marketed as a tie-in to the Star Wars Hotel, the Halcyon. Well, I'm here to tell you that I was completely wrong about that, and this book is just truly amazing. Now, actually, next to this book, I do have Someone Who Loves You, also by Beth Revis, which came out a year later, which is a child's book that basically retells Han and Leia's wedding. But the nice thing is, this time, you get to actually see how it looked, how Beth wrote it in the book, and it is just so beautiful, you guys. So, I just real quickly wanted to give a shout out to this book, also by Beth Revis. It's called Someone Who Loves You, and it's the retelling of Han and Leia's wedding from The Princess and a Scoundrel. So, please pick this up anywhere where you guys can buy books if you love Han and Leia. I mean, this is just an important piece, especially if you're a Princess Leia fan like me. This is an important piece of Leia's history, her wedding day. It is just such a big moment. So please pick that up if you love Leia. It's also written by Beth Revis, if I haven't said it before. So like usual, I'm going to kind of go over the story. I'll go over what I do or don't like, and well, yeah, we'll go from there. So, basically, the story starts off with the Battle of Endor just finishing. It's the day after they're just waking up from celebrating. And Han proposes to Leia. You know, he realizes after what they've been through, you know, not counting the year gap that he was in Carbonite, the 3 year relation, the 3 years that they've known each other, and now Leia coming back to save him, and that whole experience of dealing with the Death Star 2, you know, he definitely realized that Leia's the one for him, and he realizes he wants to spend his forever with her. So he proposes to her, you know, right there at Endor. Leia's completely caught off guard by it, not expecting it, but of course, it's everything she could have dreamed of and more. Because Han is her dream boy, you know? She loves that scoundrel. So it was so cool getting to see the setup, the preparations for the wedding. Mon Mothma took over basically on handling the wedding, and she really helped choose Leia's gown and stuff. And Leia's gown is just so beautiful. Like I said, I mean, reading it is one thing, but seeing it in a picture book is another thing. That's why I'm telling you guys, you need to pick up Someone Who Loves You, because it retells that wedding scene in such a beautiful way. You know, these drawings, the illustrations are just so amazing. And the illustrator actually is Sophie Lee. I'm sorry, I should have given her a shout out. Sophie Lee, she does such an amazing job with these illustrations, you know? I would so love to see her do more of these. I think it would be really cool if they did more of these, like, children adaptation books from the novels that show very important moments in the Star Wars galaxy. I think it adds a lot more to it, and it makes you just kind of like, in a way, feel like you're there, because you have so much material of, it's basically history books almost, you know, and you just can only imagine what it was like if you were there. So I think that was just a really, really cool thing overall. the wedding, you know, completely blew my mind. I believe it was Luke who walked Leia down the hall. Let me see before I say something wrong and everyone attacks me. Let me double check my sources. There's just a lot happens, so it's just hard for me to remember sometimes. There's just so much that I loved about this book. Yeah, basically Luke walks up Leia, you know, to the altar. The Ewoks, they kind of take over the wedding with their own little cultural version of their wedding celebrations. But before the wedding happens, actually, they miss an important part. I don't know if it's just by accident or the will of the Force. Most likely the will of the Force. But Leia comes across Vader's helmet and the ashes of his memorial that Luke had created for him at Return of the Jedi. And, you know, Leia just resents Anakin, you know, because of what he did to her in A New Hope. And not just her, but Alderaan. And the war she's been fighting against him for the past 4 years. And there's just so much of that trauma and so much of that internalized fear and hatred towards that man that, you know, when Luke tells her in this book, you know, Leia, like, he wanted me to... she didn't even want to hear what her father's last words to her were. And she doesn't even consider Anakin her father. To her, her father is Bail. And it will always be Bail and Bria as her mother and father. You know? But Luke still, regardless, even if Leia didn't want to hear what Vader's last words were, Luke said, you know, he told her what it was. And I don't want to spoil everything. And I'm probably spoiling a little too much already. Sorry, you guys. But there's just so much good stuff in this book. I really love this book. This might be as good. I don't want to really rank these two books. But I was going to say it's as good as Star Wars Bloodline. I mean, Claudia Gray has absolutely been always one of my favorite writers of Leia. But Beth Revis, she nails it. And I'm so excited for next year when her Luke and Leia book come out, Star Wars Twin Crossroads. I'm so looking forward to that. Sorry if I keep getting distracted, different topics. It's just, I remember one thing I like to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, getting back to, you know, I'll just say this. Leia finds Vader's helmet and there's an emotional scene there. So after the wedding celebrations, Mon Mothma needs Leia to go on a honeymoon with Han so that they can use as propaganda to promote the New Republic and show that their new government is going to be strong, that the rebellion is in a good place. After the destruction of the Death Star 2, there's rumors the Emperor may or may not be dead. We know that obviously he has his Sentinel droids for Operation... oh gosh, what is it called? Oh, sorry. I'm forgetting what it's called, you guys. From Battlefront 2, Operation... I'm blanking out. But you guys know what I'm talking about. When the Emperor sends out all his Sentinel droids to relay his messages, and they use those weapons to destroy the planet or whatever. So we know that the Emperor had plans in place just in case he died. So that's why there's a lot of confusion. Is the Emperor really dead? Who was there when the Emperor died? Who saw it? You know, there's just a lot of questions in the air about it. And, you know, it's understandable if you're just a normal Star Wars character in the galaxy because, I mean, the Emperor hardly made himself seen. And if he did, he made himself projected probably young and youthful like he did to Ezra in Star Wars Rebels, you know, so... But basically, Mon's like, listen, Changula, my beautiful home planet, we got a star cruise called Halcyon. It's perfect for the two of you. And I'm going to send some reporters to interview you guys and capture some photos of you. I mean, it's just so funny. Han's just like, really? Like, I don't really want to do this. It's supposed to be about us. Leia's like, yes, this is going to be about us. But at the same time, I have such an important role in this government that, unfortunately, my job kind of has to be a part of this love life. And I think that's just kind of an interesting take, you know, after the original trilogy, you know, Leia really making the Republic, the New Republic, the Rebellion is like part of... Han's just not marrying Leia. He's marrying Leia and the Rebellion, the New Republic. And I think that it was really interesting realizing that throughout this book, you know, and how that really affects, like, how someone who really prioritizes their job and really, like, makes that the forefront of everything, like, how does a relationship look like with someone like that, you know? And I think this book definitely gives you a glimpse into a workaholic, you know? I definitely think that's how Leia can be characterized too, as a workaholic, and not in a bad way. She's just really dedicated and really locked into her work, you know? But like I said, it's interesting kind of seeing the relationship, a glimpse of someone who's a workaholic. If any of you probably have experienced that in your life, I'm sure you can relate to this story. So, you know, they get to the house, yeah, and they have a great honeymoon. Han, of course, has to go do something scoundrelish. He ends up on the lower docks of the Halcyon, and I would call it the basement level, basically, playing sabacc with these low-life thugs who, some of them, happen to be stowaways. Sorry about that, my throat's a little dry. So he finds out one of these stowaways is trying to kill Leia, or not kill her, I'm sorry, potentially kidnap her, because they realize who she is and she could be worth so much money, and they're so broke that they'll do anything they can to get some money. But Han puts a stop to it real quickly. I mean, the guy wasn't most likely going to be able to even do anything to Leia, because Leia, I mean, come on. At this point, she knows she has the potential to be a Jedi. I don't think anyone could mess with her. I honestly don't. But Han took care of this little threat. No big deal. Then they stop to this planet that Leia wants to get to, because the New Republic has some information about it and they want her to scope it out. So she has to convince the captain of the cruise to make a detour in their planned cruise. I can only imagine we guessed and being told, oh, instead of going to Hawaii, we're going to Alaska, because change of plans, we have a detour. Like, I would be so upset. That's basically what happened to the passengers on the Halcyon. They were supposed to go to this Hawaii-ish type planet, tropical paradise, and they ended up going to Alaska, this frozen planet, okay? No one's packed to deal with this weather, so I'm sure those people had to buy themselves some new wardrobes, and I'm sure they can afford it, because let me tell you, the Halcyon's not cheap. I've never personally got to stay on the Halcyon. I really wish I would have, as such a big Star Wars fan I am. No matter the controversies that cruise line had, the experience that people had, whether or not the in-universe experience was really worth the price remains to be seen from my point of view. But I will always wish that I got to experience the Halcyon, and for those who did experience it, you know, I definitely envy you. But I'm glad that there are people who got to experience that side of the Star Wars universe. Back to the book, though. So basically, they go to this ice planet, and Leia has to solve this mystery as to why the Empire used to have a base there, and they're trying to figure out if it's still there, if it's in operation. And of course, the Prime Minister is trying to play Lando like he did in Bespin, trying to play cool guy, nothing's wrong, everything's peachy over here. No, of course, Han calls him on his BS because he's like, you know, this sounds like kind of what Lando did to us back on Bespin. And he just straight up, you know, is very blunt and very forward with his questions. And it's just addressing things head on. And the Prime Minister is just like taken aback, you know, he's just like, what do I do? I wasn't expecting this guy to really like call me out on all this. So the Prime Minister kind of delays all the stuff that Han calls him out on, but eventually the Prime Minister says, oh, the Empire, you know, they threatened me if I didn't help them. You know, the same stuff Lando pulled, but I guess in Lando's case, he had Vader on his neck, so you gotta give him a little bit of grace, I guess. So yeah, they find out about the Imperial base on this ice planet. Leia's like, all right, Captain on the Halcyon, we need you to help us get all these people out of here. The Empire's here. And he's like, okay. So they use the Halcyon to evacuate all these refugees who are trying to leave the planet now because the Empire's using a base there that's draining the energy source of the planet, causing these earthquakes, you know, ruining the city, all these people's homes. Very potential dangerous safety hazard. So they gotta use the Halcyon to get them out. And yeah, once that part's finished, then they get back on the cruise ship and they leave and happily ever after. I will say I really wish we got to see the end of their cruise line, like them return and be like, you know what, Mom, thank you, like we needed this or something, you know. But they kind of just end the book with like them off on their beach resort, and yeah, I mean, which is not bad, but I kind of wish, you know, we got the full cruise experience from when they board the ship to when they get off the ship. I think that would have been nice. But Beth did a really great job. She nails the dialogue of Han and Leia. You know, reading this book, I can picture Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher saying these lines. Even the scenes with Luke in the beginning of the book, I can hear Mark saying these lines to Leia. Beth and Claudia Gray both really know how to write these original trilogy characters in their primes. And I really, really hope, obviously we're getting a sequel to this book, which isn't confirmed, which is The Twin Crossroads, and that takes place right after this book with Beth Revis writing it. So honestly, I hope after Twin Crossroads we get a sequel to that book and Beth Revis can have her own little trilogy with Leia, Luke, and Han. I think that would be so cool. Really, the only cons I have about this book is, like I was saying, I just kind of wish we got the whole cruise experience with them from start to finish when they would get off of it. Besides that, I mean, I would give this book a 9 out of 10, honestly. I don't really have any cons. And, you know, I'm really disappointed with myself reading this. We're in 2026. This came out 2022, you know, 4 years after. All because I thought selfishly and idiotically that this book would just be a useless marketing cash and grab just to help hype up and tie in to the new, what was new, the Star Wars Hotel Halcyon at Walt Disney World. But I was completely wrong. I mean, really, the cruise ship of the Halcyon is maybe 30% of this book. The rest is Han, Leia, and their adventure together. And all I can say is, if you haven't already read A Princess and a Scoundrel, read it now. And also, if you haven't read Someone Who Loves You, read it now. As always, may the Force be with you guys. Bye.